And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And, I've been watching Marvel's Daredevil Born Again, okay? It's about 4 episodes in at this point. It's been good. But it's interesting because while Daredevil is a very serious show, it started an odd discussion about the differences between Daredevil and She-Hulk. Okay, I know, weird, right? But by it's weird. So by most metrics, okay, I would consider Daredevil, both the Netflix show and Born Again, to be a better show than She-Hulk. Okay, yeah, you could put better in air quotes if you want to, but the acting I think has been better. The script is better. The action is generally better. And just about everything is better in Daredevil. That said, I don't enjoy Daredevil, but I loved She-Hulk. Okay, She-Hulk is fun, right? Now, yeah, the CGI isn't great. Okay, anytime Jen Walters is on screen in her She-Hulk persona, the CGI is a little funky. All right. And it's not a show that's deep or has a lot of deep societal things to say. Okay, that's not the type of show it is. It's a comedy. I'm sure not all the jokes land for everybody, but it's still a fun show. Okay, and this is what I'm thinking about is why some shows, or more, maybe the question is, or thought is, why I go back to some shows and not others, even though others are, I would say, almost objectively better. Okay, let's take Andor, for example, the Star Wars series. Okay, Andor was a very good show. Now, I had some nitpicks with it. Yeah, there's the arc in the middle where Andor teams up with a bunch of rebels who are going to steal the payroll from a Imperial garrison. Okay, and the dude shows up with what I guess is supposed to be a space AK, but dude, it is an AK. And I'm not enough of a connoisseur of Kalashnikovs to know if is this an AK-47, is it an AK-74, is it something what? But it straight up, this is an AK, and they did almost nothing to disguise it. Okay, now sure, Star Wars has used real life guns as the basis for their blasters in the past. See Han Solo's DL-44, but which I think is just a broom handled Mauser with some stuff glued onto it. Okay, right. So anyway, aside from the dude, come on, really moment that brings me, Andor is an excellent show. I really love the arc from a storytelling perspective of the prison. Okay, when Andor ends up in the prison. That said, I don't particularly enjoy Andor. Now, I love Star Wars. Just about everything Star Wars I am about. But honestly, I would rather rewatch the Clone Wars or Kenobi, right, than I would go back and watch Andor. Now, I did rewatch Andor just a few months ago, just as let me remind myself where I'm at with Andor before the second season starts here in April. Okay, and honestly, I found it a little bit more enjoyable to binge off to the side while I'm doing something else. Okay, Andor is good. I mean, by every measure, Andor is an excellent show, but I don't enjoy it, right? And so I've been thinking about those movies and TV shows and things that I like to rewatch, right? And think about this, okay? Are there movies that you go back to and watch over and over again? Maybe not necessarily like every week or something like that. But it's like, I want to sit down and watch a movie. I'm going to rewatch whatever. Okay. And how many times is it the dark, serious, brooding Oscar bait types of movies? And how many times is it something that is fun in some way? Okay. Now, for me, a lot of the movies I like to rewatch are things like The Princess Bride or Star Wars, Spaceballs, Tangled, right? Disney's Tangled, right? These are all a lot of fun, right? They're not perfect by any means. So as much as I love Star Wars, okay, and I'm talking about A New Hope, the original Star Wars, directed, produced by George Lucas, right? All that back in the day. As much as I love Star Wars, I cannot watch that movie without acknowledging the fact that there are places where the script, the dialogue in the script kind of sucks, okay? It's not great. And other times that the dialogue delivered, even by such acting greats as Harrison Ford, they could have used a better take, potentially, right? Or they could have used another take, maybe. I don't know. That might have been the best one. But there are a few times where the dialogue definitely sounds like it was delivered by your high school or college level, entry level acting school, okay? Not by professional actors in a movie, okay? That said, I love Star Wars, okay? I do. I love Star Wars. And Spaceballs, for all its goofy fun, is not a fabulous movie, okay? It's not. But it's so much freaking fun, right? These are the movies that I like to go back to, right? Tangled is another one. I said, I love Tangled because it's fun. I love the character of Flynn Rider, right? I love the character of Rapunzel, and they are so much fun together. And then you add in the goofiness of Maximus, the horse, and was it Pascal, her lizard iguana dealy bob chameleon? That's the thing. Nuance. Right? These are fun. The Emperor's New Groove, right? The Emperor's New Groove is not a good movie. Okay? Heck, I got through about the first 10 minutes the first time I watched it and left. Okay? Now, part of it is I find David Spade to be particularly obnoxious. So for him to be doing the voice of the Emperor drove me nuts. And then I actually sat down and watched it again and realized, yeah, that is kind of the point. He is supposed to be obnoxious because the story is about his growth as he becomes a better person. Okay. Not a great person, I think, but a better person, right? So these types of things, these types of movies, so they're fun. And that's why I go back to them. As good as Daredevil is, it's not a show I'm going to go back and rewatch. Right? I finally got around to watching the Daredevil Netflix series. Okay, and it was okay. I said the movie or the show itself, everything about it was good. I mean, I can't point to anything about that show and say this is not good. No, it was all great. I might have liked some other decisions, but that doesn't change the fact that the story they told was excellent, the acting was excellent, and the execution of their story was excellent. I don't think I'm ever going to rewatch that series because I don't want to live in that space, right? It is dark and depressing and nasty and gross, and I don't want to live there. Right? I want to be someplace that is fun and enjoyable, and that's not shows like Daredevil, right? The Batman, right? The new movie starring Robert Pattinson that I say new, it came out a couple of years ago. Again, another excellent movie. Other than the fact it was literally too dark. Okay, I'm not talking about mood. I'm not talking about any of that stuff, though. You can have those discussions. I'm talking about the fact that it is a movie that is difficult to see because it is, in fact, dark. Now, you can do some good things with darkness and shadow and stuff. This was not this was not a good movie to watch. In a lot of ways, and a lot of screens, because it's just too dark to see any details. Okay. So that said, again, fabulous movie, but I don't want to live there. Okay. It had some great moments. I've been wanting to see a more serious take on the Riddler for a long time. Right? Because I always liked the Riddler, and I don't know why. Right? As a villain character, coming out of even the 1960s Adam West Batman, where he's all goofy and the riddles make zero sense at all. Right? Now, what's dangerous and lives in a tree? A squirrel with a machine gun. Sure, okay, but what? Okay, no, those types of things, whatever. But I've always wanted to see, what would a modern serious take on the Riddler be? And I think they nailed it in the Batman with a more serial killer. What was it? The Son of Sam, I think, is who they compared it to. Vibe where he commits his crimes and he leaves a riddle to, I don't know, explain maybe the right word for why he chose that particular target. And those riddles also become clues to kind of where his crime spree is going. Okay. That is a fascinating approach. On the other hand, that movie is so emotionally dark, I think maybe is the way to put it. It's so crushingly dark that I don't want to watch it over again. Right? It's like, I might go back and rewatch it from time to time, but we're talking decades between rewatches here. We're not talking, oh, I'm going to put this on every couple of months, right? It's just not that type of movie. And I think that was one of the problems that The Acolyte had, okay? Now, you can go back to my really late movie review of The Acolyte, which was somewhat less late since it came out right after the show did. But the Acolyte, Star Wars The Acolyte, was a serious Star Wars show, okay? The problem was, it wasn't, I don't mean this in necessarily a bad way, it wasn't good, okay? There are some really interesting thoughts. There was a really interesting through line of everyone making what they think is the best choice at the time, and very little deliberate malice by the Jedi or the witches or whatever. Yeah, maybe the one Sith who shows up. But all of the rest, there's very little deliberate malice, okay? It's not to say everybody is honest and forthright and everything, but we made a choice, and we made what we thought was the best choice at the time. And yeah, there are consequences to those choices. Okay. Now, I do get really tired of Star Wars stories painting the Jedi as the villains. Okay. I don't think that's how they were ever supposed to have been envisioned. Flawed? Yes. But villains? No, they're not. At least they shouldn't be. And the Acolyte wanted to play in that space a little more than I enjoyed. Okay, fine. Still, the story was at least mildly interesting, if I thought some of the way that it was woven together was a little funky. But on top of that, it wasn't fun, right? There was one episode which everybody seemed to like. It was episode 5, I think, where you have a confrontation between our Sith and this team of Jedi. And it was a fun action scene. A series of action scenes, really. Didn't like some of the results of the action, But that's a whole separate discussion, right? But there was some fun to be had there. But the whole rest of the show, it was serious, wasn't amazing, and wasn't fun, right? People, I think, are more willing to overlook a movie's imperfections if they're having fun, right? And I think that's part of what drives some of the discussion or discourse surrounding the MCU, right? Right, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially the Infinity Saga. Okay, we could talk about the other movies in a little bit, but that first series, those first 20-something movies, are widely accepted as being good movies. Now, there are a few ones that are weaker, okay? As much as I like The Incredible Hulk, it's not incredible, okay? Right? They've done a lot recently to actually pull it more into the MCU, and I really liked it, but a lot of people not so much. Thor 2, right? Thor: The Dark World. Again, not fabulous, okay? There are parts of it that are really, really fun and I like, but it's not, I don't think it's quite as, it's not the disaster people claim it is, but it's not fabulous, okay? It doesn't hit those same highs that some of the other shows like Captain America: Winter Soldier or heck, even Infinity War and Endgame do, okay? Now, while those two are darker movies by the nature of the films, they don't lose that sense of fun. At least not as much, okay? Now, you'll get people like Martin Scorsese and others who will claim that the MCU movies are not quote unquote cinema, okay? And I'm not entirely sure what he means by cinema. I will agree that the movies of the MCU and blockbusters like Star Wars and stuff, they're not deeply serious movies, paragons of deep storytelling. They're not the Oscar bait that we need to tell a story about. More recently, it's been some political cause or whatever, but that's not what they are. But there's a reason they made over $1 billion, and a lot of those Oscar bait films have not. Okay, it's because people go to those movies. They go to see Iron Man. They go to see Spider-Man. They go to see Avengers. Why? Because they're fun. They enjoy it. It's something that they like, right? Nobody likes to go and sit down at a PowerPoint presentation and get preached to for 2 hours, okay? It's nobody enjoys this, okay? Heck, I just had to go through our annual diversity and harassment training at work, and it was 3 hours or 2.5 hours, really, of just boring. Okay, I'm not saying that what was there is wrong or we shouldn't be talking about it or trying to minimize the amount of harassment and all that stuff in the workplace. Not at all. Not at all. We should be excellent to each other, right? I say that every week at the end of the show. We should be excellent to each other. That's okay. But it's just freaking boring, okay? And the reality is, as good as some of these movies are, and some of these TV shows too, you just get to a point where it's like, just shut up. This is great, but I need to go not be here for a while, okay? And so, sometimes if you're trying to go to movies to escape reality or to find some enjoyment and stuff or whatever, those shows, it's like Daredevil, or the Batman or Andor, they're not the places to go to to escape, right? Now, I'm not saying that movies have to be escapism, right? Just like not every book needs to be a work of fiction, right? There's a good place for nonfiction books, and while I don't read them often, I do like a bit of nonfiction from time to time. Okay, I particularly enjoy history and political science and things like that, but I don't dive into them very often because what I read, I want to read for fun, for recreation. Okay, sometimes I do want to read a book because I want to learn something in particular or learn more about a topic, but more often than not, I want something to help relax. Okay, and I think it's interesting why people will gravitate to those movies that are fun, even though they are, by every measure, not as good, right? So, coming back to Star Wars, because again, I love Star Wars. You look at those original, you look at the prequel movies, right? Starting with The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, right? That series. Those are they're definitely not perfect movies. Okay, again, I find them a lot of fun, but they're not perfect. I think what those movies could have used was a script doctor. Okay, George Lucas used the knowledge and skills of the people around him to improve the scripts of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Okay. And the reality is, as much as Lucas was, he was obviously, he directed A New Hope. He is not listed as the director on The Last Jedi or on the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, but he was definitely hands-on in making those. Part of the reason those last two were so good is because somebody else got a hold of the script and somebody else was directing the actors. Okay. Lucas is great at laying out a story. He's not great at writing a script. Okay. All respect to George Lucas for creating this universe that I love, but that is not one of his strengths. Okay. His strengths do not involve directing actors. They just don't. Okay. I'm sorry, George. I said all respect on your name for Star Wars, but directing actors is not his strong suit. Okay? The prequels really would have benefited from somebody else taking those scripts that he wrote and giving them a once over or maybe twice over to help tighten up the plot, help the dialogue be a little bit better, right? The romance between Anakin and Padme in Attack of the Clones definitely could have used some help. But when those movies came out, everyone jumped on those flaws, okay? And they are flaws, right? But here we are 20 years from Attack of the Clones, right? It's the 20-year anniversary of Attack of the Clones this year. And people are looking back at those with love, okay? The movies haven't changed, right? Unlike the original series where Lucas went back and fiddled with them a little bit. Han did still shoot first. I'm sorry, George. The story worked better with Han shooting first. But the prequels, there's a real reverence for those now. Partly it's nostalgia. You get the kids who grew up watching them, and those are the Star Wars of their childhood, and they're thinking back to when they were 10 and watching those movies. Because honestly, that age range, right? George talked about them being for 12-year-olds. Okay. And that quote gets taken a little too literally sometimes, but the idea that Star Wars is for 12-year-olds, it's for It's for those people who are starting to find their place in the world, right? That's why you have this whole series of, or whole genre of YA, usually fantasy, of these kids who become heroes. Because it's helping these kids who are trying to find their place in the world by having characters who are trying to find their place in the world and are in fact finding it. Okay. But you look back at Star Wars, or at least the prequel series, and I still like to rewatch them, warts and all, because darn it, those movies are fun, right? I love a good lightsaber fight, right? Even some of them that are a little funky, right? They're still fun, right? The battle with Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones. I like that they show that Dooku is just that much better than Obi-Wan and Anakin. Okay, great. But it bugs me. They give him a lightsaber hilt that curves like a saber. Okay, and I mean this in a historical saber sense. Okay, Jedi lightsabers are typically approached as if they were a katana, or they kind of fight with that, not necessarily style, but that sort of approach. They're two-handed swords. A katana, well, it's got a suba. It doesn't have much of a cross guard, anything like that, for a lot of hand protection. See Luke and or Mace Windu or Anakin for that matter, right? But that's how they approach the lightsaber. Dooku, in the canon, he had a different lightsaber hilt. It has that curved saber-like hilt, which is designed for fencing. But he doesn't often fight with the lightsaber as if he's fighting with an actual saber, as if he's fencing with it. He fights with it like he's hacking and slashing with a longsword or something, right? Personal pet peeve, I would have really liked to have seen that more of that approach. But anyway, all of that aside, sorry, I get distracted. I get on these tangents. I love movies and watching stuff like this. But the reason I like to go back to them is because I enjoy watching them, right? They're a fun escape, right? And there are a lot of movies that people love, like The Goonies, for some reason, has been having a little bit of a renaissance. And I don't know why. The Goonies is not a good movie, but people love it. There are just parts of it, they just say, this is just so much fun. Now, The Goonies I've never enjoyed The Goonies. I've never liked it. I've never felt the need to go back and watch it. I think I watched it again. I think it may have only been my second, maybe third time watching it. A year or two ago. And I'm looking back at this like, man, why did I ever even... Well, no, the reality is I never really liked The Goonies. So, but people just love the thing. So, okay, cool. I'm certainly not going to get on people because they like something that I don't, right? What you like and what you don't like is not something I can say is wrong. Okay? Like what you want, man. But for me, at least, and looking at the movie industry in general, and by extension, TV, the shows that people revisit are the ones that are fun, right? Look at what are the shows that have the highest watch times on streaming services. It's The Office. It's Friends. It's those shows. Those shows have been off the air forever. Okay, and Friends. I like Friends. Okay, Friends was a good show. It was fun. I liked it. It was as a sitcom and all that stuff. I liked it. It hasn't aged very as well for me. There's definitely some of those episodes where it's like, yeah, okay, moving on, right? But people just keep going back and rewatching Friends, or they'll just go back and rewatch The Office. Now, I've never watched The Office. I've heard about it. I had it bookmarked on Netflix when it was on there, and never got around to watching it before we canceled Netflix. So I don't know. I can't judge the show. The little bits of it I've seen, I have not liked. But on the other hand, it's cherry picking a couple of little bits and pieces, little clips, right? And I just haven't really enjoyed those much. But a lot of people do. And they just go back and rewatch those. And you go, what are they going back and rewatching? Why are they rewatching? Because it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's an escape, it's lighthearted, perhaps. Are they going back and watching those deep, serious things? Some of them. Game of Thrones, maybe. Maybe they're rewatching it for the TNA. I don't know, but again, I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so I can't tell you, right? But it's why are people going back and rewatching those and not rewatching or just watching some of these epic shows of epic seriousness and epicness, right? Well, it's because they're not. I literally say, I've been saying it a lot. It's not fun. Right? Now, I don't tend to watch a lot of dramas, okay? And there's definitely a time and a place where I want to sit down. Yes, I need something serious, okay? Yes, I am going to put on Romeo and Juliet, or I am going to put on Man of La Mancha, or I am going to put on, some other deep dramatic film. But more often than not, man, it's going to be something fun. And heck, I'm watching Castle. Okay, I've never watched the series before. It's on Disney Plus because they've imported it from Hulu for a month or something like that. Castle is at its best when it is playing into the lighthearted, still kind of serious but not dark police procedural murder mystery. Okay, where Castle is fun. You get the fun banter between Esposito and Ryan. You've got the little, just the love and friendly teasing and togetherness of Castle's family, right? That's when the show's at its best. But when it throws all of that out and decides to dive into some dark, I don't know, epic storyline of some sort, it's just not nearly as compelling. I don't enjoy it as much, right? Because all the things that make the show great are gone. Sure, Nathan Fillion's still fun, still a good actor, I guess, but there's no fun, right? They throw all of his charisma away because he has to be serious and brooding, right? And there's a time and a place for that, right? In the movie Serenity, where Fillion plays Malcolm Reynolds, and there's a lot of fun with the Firefly crew. Yeah, and it does get dark, and it does get serious, but the whole show, the whole movie isn't that. It's still, he still has those moments of, yeah, this is the guy we've known and loved through Firefly, right? So, yeah, as I've been looking at the differences between these things, right? Between Daredevil and She-Hulk and Andor and Kenobi and a lot of the movies that I'm really enjoying and what's dropping at the Oscars. Yeah, there's a real obvious divide of there's the deep literature of some of those Oscar movies, but people aren't reading deep literature, and they're not going back to reread it often. What they're reading, right? Again, we're talking film and TV here, but what they're going back to consume are the movies that are fun. And, you know, that's, and I think that's an important thing to think about is that, yes, there are some very important, meaningful messages in Daredevil and some of these other movies and some of these other shows, Andor and things like that. But dang it, if I'm gonna watch them more than a couple of times because they just bring me down. So let's enjoy the fact that yeah, movies can and I think honestly should be enjoyable. If nothing else, they should be fun. That's why they make. That's why Avengers made $1 billion because it was fun. And I have no way of ending this beyond saying, like what you like, enjoy what you like, and be excellent to each other. And until next time, this is Music Free Static signing off.